Hey, my dear. Welcome to the book club at Panda J UK. Let's practice reading aloud together. London. In photos, Spring 2026 parks, animals, and day trips. Although we've already had a couple of heat waves in London this year, officially, summer is only starting next week. Continuing a long-standing tradition of my blog, let me take you on a photo journey to Spring 2026 inches London and a couple of other English towns. We will start in my local parks in East London, then venture to other London parks, and finally, I'll take you on a few day trips out of London, from wildlife to colourful flowers, famous landmarks and stunning landscapes. Get ready for plenty of photos. 1. Spring in the Olympic Park and West Ham Park. In April, my local parks started to fill with colours. The trees finally grew leaves, and some of them also produced flowers. Daffodils, abundant during winter months, made way for spring flowers. Early spring is probably my favourite time of year for being outdoors. I love seeing the parks finally come back to life. 2. Little Venice and Hyde Park. One Sunday in April, I decided to do a canal walk near Little Venice in central North London. I mentioned that route in my post with 7 ideas for a long walk in London. I highly recommend it. During that stroll, I walked past some wisteria and simply enjoyed the quiet surroundings. I started the walk in Camden and walked all the way to Hyde Park, where I spent some time in the Italian gardens, stunning as always. 3. Regent's Park. If you can only visit one London park in the spring, I recommend choosing Regent's Park. My parents' favourite place in London is the Rose Garden, which starts to fill with colourful, fragrant flowers around May. But even earlier than that, the flower beds along the footpaths have beautiful floral arrangements, planted by the park's gardeners. Additionally, at the end of April 2026, a new garden opened in Regent's Park dedicated to the memory of the late Queen Elizabeth II. It's a wildflower garden and a great place to sit down and rest. 4. Golders Hill Park and Pergola. One of my favourite not-so-popular parks in London is Golders Hill Park. It features a beautiful pergola, a couple of other flower gardens, and even a mini zoo which is completely free. I rarely visit that park as it requires a long commute from where I live, but I had a day off in April and decided to spend it there. The walled garden didn't disappoint. There was wisteria in bloom, as well as some early spring flowers. I also enjoyed seeing the lemurs and wallabies in the mini zoo. Sadly, the pergola was closed for filming that day, which prompted me to return to Golders Hill Park a few weeks later in May. The pergola is one of London's best hidden gems, though I expected the flower beds to be more colourful, to be honest. 5. Hampstead Heath and Kenwood House. Just a stone's throw away from Golders Hill is Hampstead Heath, a large park particularly known for the panoramic views of London from Parliament Hill. The air wasn't perfectly clear when I visited Hampstead Heath on a weekend in May 2026, but the view was still great. Whilst I was in Hampstead Heath, I decided to check out Kenwood House, a mansion located near the north end of the park, managed by English Heritage. It's free to visit. I just never had a chance to do it until last month. Some of the rooms were stunning. It didn't take me long to tour all of Kenwood House, but it was definitely worth a visit. Outside, there's a small garden that is particularly stunning around late spring. 6. Greenwich Park. On the last weekend in May, When the weather resembled summer rather than spring, I visited Greenwich Park for a short walk. I decided to ignore the most popular spot, the hill viewpoint next to the Royal Greenwich Observatory, and instead went for a walk along the outer walls of the park. I started near the herb garden and headed towards the rose garden located next to the ranger's house. It was stunning, filled with a variety of colourful flowers. Next, I went to the flower garden near the southeast end of the park. I hoped to see the deer that supposedly returned to Greenwich Park not long ago, but, as always, they were nowhere to be seen. If you want to see deer in London, just go to Richmond Park. From the flower garden, I continued my walk around the park, which led me to discovering a new, hidden section of Greenwich Park, the Queen's Orchard. New to me, I mean. Not many people venture to that part of the park, so the orchard was nice and quiet. After I left Greenwich Park, I headed to Greenwich Market, where I had one of the best ice creams ever. It was espresso martini flavored. Absolutely delicious. I then spent some time near the Cutty Sark before taking the DLR back home. 7. A day in West London. Brompton Cemetery, Fulham Palace, Chiswick House, and the Thames Path. At the end of April 2026, I spent a fun day in West London. I visited a few landmarks and saw some spectacular wisteria. It was a really long walk from Brompton Cemetery to Richmond, and I loved it. You can read all about that day in this post. Maybe it will inspire you for your next day out in London. 8. Central London views. I also enjoyed a few walks in central London this spring. I finally managed to visit the Temple Gardens, open only for a few hours a day, weekdays only. I also captured a nice photo of St. Paul's Cathedral and visited Covent Garden to check the seasonal decor. One day in May, a new Banksy artwork appeared near St. James's Park in London. This time, it wasn't graffiti, but a huge monument. I happened to be in the office that day and walked to see the statue during my lunch break. It's a really good illustration of the world's leaders, and a powerful message. There was quite a crowd admiring the installation, and the council had already protected it with a temporary fence. 9. Animals in London. In the spring, London parks fill with ducklings and goslings. They're so cute, I can't stop looking at them. I also managed to photograph a cute robin. Robins are one of my favourite birds in London, but they're very skittish. It's hard to catch a good photo of them. One day, when I was on a walk, I saw a hilarious scene. A dog holding the thickest stick I've ever seen. I don't know how he managed to fit it in his mouth, but the photo I took cracks me up every time I look at it. 10. V&A East. A couple of months ago, the V&A Museum opened a brand new location in Stratford. In fact, there are 2 new buildings, which I only discovered recently. I popped into V&A East at the end of May. There are a few exhibition rooms, but for the size of that brand new building, there isn't much to see yet. My favourite thing was certainly the terrace with great views of the Olympic Park. I'm yet to visit the second V&A building in Stratford, but it's definitely on my list. 11. Annual spring events in London. Now, let me mention the annual free events in London, which I always look forward to. First of all, the Plant Festival at the Chelsea Physic Garden, which I attended in 2024 and 2025. It used to be free, but they introduced paid tickets this year. So I decided to pass and spent the day exploring a different area of London. My absolute favorite festival, the Lambeth Country Show, an event with 50 years of history, was unfortunately cancelled in 2026, which was devastating news. Luckily, one free annual event did take place, the Chelsea in Bloom and Belgravia in Bloom Floral Festival. I wrote about it in this post. The spectacular floral displays never disappoint. 12. Day trips from London. Hastings. I managed to do quite a few day trips this spring, and one of them was to Hastings. I visited my favorite cafes, had a stroll through the old town, and enjoyed the view from the two hills. If you're interested in visiting Hastings yourself, I wrote a post about a long weekend in Hastings a couple of years ago. Whilst I was walking along the beach in Hastings, I saw a dinosaur that someone arranged from the pebbles found on the shore. How creative! 7 Sisters. I love a good hike, but unfortunately, the southeast of England is pretty flat. One of the few decent places for a hike is the 7 Sisters, the famous white cliffs on the south coast. I've done that hike several times and returned yet again this spring. I actually walked a marathon distance that day, from Seaford to Eastbourne and back. The views were spectacular, as always. You can read more about a 7 Sisters hike in this post. Warwick. At the end of April, I decided to go on a Saturday day trip to Warwick. I wrote a whole post about that trip. I thoroughly enjoyed my visit to Warwick Castle. The highlight of the day was certainly the Birds of Prey show, but the staterooms were also stunning. Overall, I highly recommend visiting Warwick if you have a chance. Weymouth and the Isle of Portland. One of my favourite days this spring was my day trip to Weymouth and the Isle of Portland. It was a spontaneous choice, made purely because I saw a rail ticket sale. It ended up being a fantastic trip. I visited a small zoo, aquarium, and enjoyed spectacular views during a mini hike on the Isle of Portland. I even saw a wild seal in the sea. I wrote a post about my day trip to Weymouth and the Isle of Portland, if you want to check it out. Rochester. Finally, my last day trip in the spring was to Rochester, which I had visited previously for a Christmas market. This time, although it was May, it felt like full summer. I loved browsing the independent shops on the high street, visited Rochester Cathedral, and had an ice cream next to Rochester Castle. I also toured a house mentioned by Charles Dickens in some of his novels. Keep your eyes peeled for a post about that day trip. It's coming soon. Final thoughts. What a quarter it's been! I didn't realize just how much I managed to do and see in just 3 months in London. Coming out of winter, I'm always eager to spend time outdoors, exploring London parks, and going on day trips. It will be hard to beat during the summer, but I already have a few fun things planned.
If you like this video, write in the comments, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and share the video with your friends.
If you'd like to practice more, click the link up here to jump into the next English lesson.